Now calling to order the June 24th meeting of the Mashpee Conservation Commission. There's anyone before the commission that has business that is not on the agenda, and advise you to please stand and be recognized. Seeing none, turn this over to Drew for our pre- and post-meeting agenda items.
Okay, the first items up on the pre-post meeting agenda are the approval of 3 sets of meeting minutes. First one is from March 25th, 2021, and we have members Brad Sweet, Paul Colombo, and Charlie Dalton here to make up a quorum for those meeting minutes.
I would move to approve the minutes of the March 25th meeting.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Voting, Brad,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Charlie.
yes,
Thank you. Next meeting minutes up are from May 13th, 2021, and we have Chad Smith, Brad Sweet, Paul Colombo, and Charlie present for a quorum.
And Alex as well.
And Alex, sorry.
I would move to approve the minutes of May 13th, 2021.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Paul. Voting, Brad,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Charlie,
yes,
Alex.
Yes.
I vote aye as well. Motion passes.
Thank you. And the last set of meeting minutes is from May 27th, 2021. Members present for a quorum, Chad Smith, Brad Sweet, Paul Colombo, Alex, and Charlie.
Do I hear a motion?
I would move to approve the minutes of May 27th, 2021.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Brad and Tom. Voting, Brad,
Yes.
Tom.
Nope, Tom's not here.
Yeah, probably could have figured that one out. Paul,
I got to check.
Yes.
Alex,
Yeah.
Charlie.
Charlie.
yes.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries.
Thank you. We can probably move on to the first hearing.
Please do. Now calling the 6 o'clock hearing for Jeannie Sicoli, 5 Clamshell Drive, proposed raise and replace of a single-family home, new Title V septic system, landscaping, hardscaping, and associated appurtenances. Representative is from Cape and Islands Engineering. This is a notice of intent.
Good evening. This on?
Yes.
You're on.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicants, who's also present in the public here, Jean and Blaze Scully. The project before you is a tear down and rebuild of a single-family residence. The property is located at 5 Clamshell Lane, and there are several resources within 100 feet of this site. The site is located in land subject to coastal storm flowage, which is elevation 11. To the northeast is Hamling Pond, which is land under the ocean, and at the same time is land containing shellfish. Hamling Pond is also an area of ACEC, defined by the mean low water at that point. It is not in natural heritage for endangered species. There are several coastal banks on the property. The main coastal bank is the one that is first along the shores of Hamling Pond. That's the main coastal bank. It is man-made, being that it's bulkheads. There's also a secondary coastal bank. At the top of the existing man-made bulkheads, there's a flat area, but then the topography meets the definition by slope of a DEP coastal bank. So there's a secondary coastal bank, but yet there is another third local Mashpee coastal bank, because just above elevation 11, which is the flood zone, the slope continues to be steeper than 10-to-1. So we have a coastal bank for the town of Mashpee at elevation 12. The existing house is actually nestled in this coastal bank, this secondary coastal bank. And what we're proposing to do, the applicant's proposing to raise the existing house, move the house further back away from the resources, about approximately some 7 feet. A couple of things are achieved with this. We gain some setbacks to the resources, but we also have the opportunity to build a house outside of the flood zone. What we're proposing to do is take the contour 11, which is the flood zone elevation, and grade it around the new house. The front 1/3 of the house for the new house will consist of a garage. So the main living space is behind this garage. There's an existing crushed shell driveway that's going to be abandoned and replaced with yard, lawn, and on the side, there's going to be a screening with a fence. The front of the new house will be a new crushed shell or crushed stone driveway with couple aprons. A couple apron along Shell Lane and another couple apron entering the driveway. Entering the garage. There's going to be a new septic system that's slightly further away from all the resources. And there is going to be roof runoff discharging into subsurface drywalls, which currently there are no drywalls. So in all, we believe this project meets the regulations, and it's an improvement over what's existing on the site, being that the proposed work is further away from the resources. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer. One of the last things we changed yesterday, we had designated on the initial plan 2 areas of evergreen screening. The front area next to the driveway, we switched that from just calling it evergreen screening to red eastern cedars. So that's going to be, it's still going to be evergreen screen, but it's specific to cedars. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you. Drew, comments?
So, just in looking at the plan, the area that you have proposed setback from the existing structure, is anything, what's planned in that area? I see it says plants, but I'm assuming that's the existing condition. So is anything proposed in that setback?
You mean on the
Yeah.
west?
Yeah.
Evergreen, something we have there is we're proposing to connect the front driveway to the existing rear walkway. So we're proposing a walkway. So we have about a 4-foot area that we're proposing to use screening.
This right here.
It could be any native indigenous planting.
Nothing
If the
there.
board, if the commissioners have any specific species that they'd like to see there, the applicant is willing to accept that.
But I think Drew means on the north, not
Oh, yeah, on the water side.
on the water side.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, Raul. So where you've got the brown shading indicating the new proposed home, and then you've got the footprint in gray out of the existing home.
So that area is going to be loam
That's gonna be loam?
and seeded.
Okay.
No trees in that space? No shrubbery or anything of that nature?
None proposed.
Nothing
Not-
against the house.
Not at the edge of the proposed house. Right out of the edge of the proposed house, we're kind of regrading what would become coastal bank, because we're going down from elevation 13 back to the existing elevation 10 in a rather, probably like some 15 feet.
So the coastal bank will change?
Right, the existing house is nestled in the coastal bank, so the coastal bank comes in on the east side and comes out of the west side. It will continue to do the same thing.
But if you're regrading it,
Right, because we're taking out the existing house, and that grading that we're doing to get it out of the flood zone will continue to be the coastal bank coming up to the house again.
So it'll still remain slope criterion as coastal?
It will meet both the town and state.
Other questions or comments from our commissioners?
I did, sorry, I wanted to show some photos of the site. So looking top left photo here, this is a shot of the existing driveway looking down towards the house and the street side of the yard here. And then the other 2 photos just showing existing conditions on either side of the driveway. And you've got the staking here on the right photo, which shows the septic system footprint on that side. And then going down. There's some other photos of the site. Top left, looking at the existing landscape condition up to the house. And, sorry, top left, top right, looking back, standing in front of the house towards the street. And you can see this is all lawn. There are some oak trees here. All of these are going to be removed. That was the reason for the planting of the cedars is, I believe, one of these trees may be right at the 50-foot, which, you know, is our setback determination for requiring mitigation. So I think it's just past the 50-foot line, but in talking with Cape and Islands, I said wouldn't have a problem putting in some native cedars for that screening area as opposed to ornamentals. Then bottom left photo showing the staking of the coastal bank here over to the left and the work limit. And then looking out bottom right towards the backyard, going down to this planted area here. I think this is Virginia rose growing here, and then below that, in the next series of photos, this is the existing bulkhead and patio. All of this has been previously permitted. Cape and Islands included the permitting information in their application, and when we vetted that out, all of this has been previously permitted. This is a pretty old area of town, so a lot of existing conditions, you know, wouldn't meet the Wetlands Protection Act today, but a lot of this predates the Wetlands Protection Act. So, and then the right side photo, looking back up the other side yard towards the backyard. This is where Raul, I think you said we were going to have a walkway coming around this area here. Is that what you were saying?
It will be on the opposite
the other
side.
side of the house, sorry. Yeah, so this is the opposite side. So for the resource areas, coastal bank, you've got an armored coastal bank situation, a bulkheaded coastal bank. No part of the application is going to impact this area of the bank. So this will, I'm assuming this is all remaining intact. There's no disturbance to this area. And for land subject to coastal storm flowage, as you see from these photos and the previous photos, the entire lot is pre-disturbed, so you're not looking at any naturally vegetated areas here, with the exception of the oak trees here, all three of which are outside the 50-foot setback to coastal bank, with one of them in question, but we've dealt with that possibility through the cedar planting. And that's I think that pretty much covers everything, so no other comments.
Thank you, Drew. Questions, comments from the commissioners?
I have a question. The rinse station, I assume that's gonna be like an outdoor shower?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Is it like an outdoor shower?
Yeah, outdoor wind station.
So what is the plan right now for the runoff for that?
So we have a couple of dry wells for the roof that we can connect that to. If that's added to a condition, that will be done.
Connected to dry well.
Yep. When somebody's using the rinse station, it should not be raining that day.
Right.
And I don't think, well, Board of Health does have comments. They don't have anything on file yet, so there will be a requirement for asbestos inspection and the usual protocols, but
I haven't seen any feedback from the health department yet.
they said they don't have anything on file.
Huh.
So that's why you haven't heard from them.
That's why.
But I talked to the agent today, and obviously, I know you guys will submit something to them for their review. But it's their standard protocol, you know, and when it comes to inspections. I didn't mention, and I don't know if Glenn had noticed, I don't think they're requiring, there was something a while back when it came to outdoor showers and rinse stations, that if they're fully enclosed, that they have to be plumbed into the septic system?
Yes,
Or if they're halfway
There's-
open. I don't think that that's,
There's been a lot of back and forth on that. This
Yeah.
one is an open,
it's open. Okay,
just fencing on the sides.
yeah. I think that's because of the, you know, possibility of shampoo,
Yeah.
soap use. and
Could
things
be.
like
Also,
that. So
I
it's-
thought it was also, because I have a neighbor who went through this exercise, and he's been told you can't bring certain kinds of soap out there.
Right.
You know, shampoos you can't bring out there, but there are certain kind of soaps that are
Right.
allowed. And then exactly, you can't put it into just a normal dry well.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, sorry.
Another comment I would have is, given the proximity to, the ACEC, I would say any plantings need to be native, so the evergreen screen on the other side.
Okay.
If those could also be cedars, I think that would be better.
I guess my comment to that, the cedars would get big. The space there is about 4 feet. Is the commission really looking for cedars or another planting species from the approved list?
So for screen, I mean, what else would screen that's native that would do it the way they want it?
If we
Maybe-
do cedar, I guess the bottom portion may be trimmed just to provide the access,
Right.
and then the upper side would probably be
I think that
allowed
would
to.
work.
I think so too.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah, because other than that, when you're looking at screening, it's almost always green giant arborvitae,
right.
which,
Right.
you know, you typically see, but, or privet.
Yeah, we can agree to that condition.
Okay.
Other questions and comments from the commissioners?
Notice you have fencing down both sides. Is there, those were raised? I think I saw a picture go by that they were raised, which would allow for wildlife.
Right, the picture on one of the slides was the fence that's to the east, and it was raised from the ground about some 10 inches to 12
Right.
inches.
Yeah.
That one is staying. We are proposing a new one to the west. We can do the same if that's what the commission wants to condition, raise it off the ground some 6,
Yeah,
10
this
inches.
one is moved on the right picture, very
Yeah,
high.
the right side.
You got a bear through that thing. Yeah.
Yes, we can make that a condition too. So 6 inches clearance underneath.
When you do that, does the 6-foot limitation become 5'6", or would you end up with a custom fence?
The height of the fence is measured at the
don't
top
think
of
you
the
have a
fence,
height
regardless
restriction
of what
on
happens
fence.
on the bottom.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, no. Other questions and comments? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make comment on this particular project?
I think just
If you can give your name for the record, please.
Blaze, yeah.
Thank you.
You know, I think, Jeannie's agreeable to, working with the commission on any suggestions you might have about native plantings, and we'll work through Cape and Islands with you guys, because we would like it to look that way.
Sure.
So the introduction of things like arborvitae's, and they're not really of interest to Jeannie to have there. So those recommendations were great. We like the look of the cedars. If there are some other things you think, help the area out, we'd be happy to.
Okay. And, sorry, I forgot to add one other comment, is that the lawn, our lawn standards kick in when lawn is disturbed and replaced, so this will be a 90% rye fescue lawn, and we'll need documentation thereof. When the lawn is installed, can't issue a certificate of compliance until we have that documented, type of, grass mix, from the nursery, so please make sure that that's supplied to us when it gets done, or at least before you apply for a certificate of compliance if the commission approves the project.
I just had a question about that. There was a project approved in Little Neck that I think they found a sod farm that produces a sod that is that mix. Can we still use that?
Yeah, as long as it's got the mix, it doesn't matter if it's seed or sod, as long as it contains that 90% rye
That's
fescue.
rye fescue.
Yeah.
Yep. They are around.
There are no other questions or comments. We'll entertain a motion. There were some proposed conditions on this.
I didn't hear any conditions, did I?
We have the fence
Fence.
clearance under the fence, outdoor shower tied into dry well, and as much native plantings as possible around for what's proposed.
Okay.
Native variety.
But I would move that we close an issue in regards to this project at Clive Clamshell Drive with the following conditions: that the fence be elevated so that wildlife can pass, that the outside shower is drained according to the Board of Health conditions, and, sorry, but I just can't read my scribbles now. What's the last one?
Native plantings.
Native plantings, whatever called.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Charlie?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a nice evening.
You too.
A couple minutes, Drew?
Yes, all right. Just- actually, this one, I have visual up on the screen that works better than the plan and the file.
Perfect.
Forgot to make copies, so,
No worries.
so the transition to live meetings is still ongoing.
And just shorthanded. Now calling the 603 Bright Coves Village Association, 9 Bright Coves Way, 142 and 176 Waterway. Proposed construction of access steps for canoe kayak water access. Representative Carolyn Donahue, Bright Coves Association President. This is an RDA. If you could state your name and speak your piece.
My name is Carolyn Donahue, and I'm the chairperson of Bright Coves in Mashpee, Massachusetts.
Could you talk to us a little bit about the proposed project?
Yes. The proposed stairs are the largest, there's 3 areas there. These are reserved areas in our community, and they are reserved for the benefit of all the residents. The residents use these areas, historically speaking, to launch their kayaks or swim or paddleboard in the creek there in Papaneset Creek and that area. I've noticed a lot of erosion on the banks, and to sort of prevent that from occurring more, I proposed building these stairs. These stairs are made out of wood, treated, pressure-treated wood. I purchased basically a kit from Home Depot. There are 3 stairs, is the largest number of stairs of the 3 areas. 2 of them would have stairs with 3 steps. One of them would have a stair with just 1 step. And it's basically to protect the bank. People can get in and out without them, but they're just ruining the banks. So I propose to install them in each one of the locations.
Thank you. Drew, comments?
So, before I get into describing this project and showing the photos, a couple of them had gotten started already because I think there was some miscommunication about how we were gonna go approving this, whether administrative or through an RDA, which is what you have before you now. So you'll see in some of the photographs, some of the steps have been completed or half completed. And there's one area where there are no steps. The reason that I recommended to the applicant to come forward with this through an RDA and not a notice of intent is because, as you'll see when I go through the photos, in these areas, these are situations where people have been, accessing through the reserve areas as described for canoe, kayak, paddleboarding, swimming, and in these kind of bottleneck areas, these pedestrian access points have become really degraded over the years. So the willingness of the association to step up and fix this problem with a relatively simple structure of a set of steps, as opposed to doing nothing at all, I felt that the least we could do is make the permitting side a little more amenable, rather than going through a full-blown notice of intent, engineer plans, with the understanding that this is taking place in a resource area, but it's in the interest of protecting that resource area instead of doing nothing at all. So I'm glad that the association recognized the problem and decided to come forward and address it. So these are the 3 areas. This is 9 Bright Coves here on the image to the left. These are all just open reserve areas between the houses off of Waterway and Bright Coves Way. 176 Waterway in the middle, and then 142 Waterway on the right side. And your resource areas, land subject to coastal storm flow, coastal bank, bordering vegetated wetland, salt marsh, and buffer zone to land under ocean. So the steps are really in that transition area from the immediate buffer zone to the resource area to accommodate this access. So this is the photos of the 9 Bright Coves reserve area. And you can see here Sorry if the yellow kind of distracts it, but this has all just been gouged out right along here where it's highlighted in yellow. And I mentioned too to Carolyn when we were out there looking at these areas, I think this one and the other one on the corner of Waterway are some of the worst ones. The other one's not too bad. But, you know, once the stairways are put in, if the commission approves it, we can look at doing some other measures to prevent the areas from getting worse. And that's something, you know, I explained that I'd be willing to help out with to see what can be done. Because there's a lot of undercutting in some of these areas that if they're not dealt with, they'll just end up getting worse over time, so. And this is the second reserve area. This is 142 Waterway, and here you can see this is one of the steps that were put in, but this is going to be added to, I think, with a third step above the
Right.
top step that you see here. So again, you can see this is the access point, bottom left photo, people coming down this way to access this area of the cove. And you can kind of see from the photograph, there's just been degradation from foot traffic coming over this. And it's a pretty dangerous situation because here you've got rocks underneath the steps. So just traversing down over this without some sort of proper access is also a very hazardous situation in addition to degrading the area and the resource area. Last image, 176 reserve area. We gave administrative approval a while back to put in these tiered water bars down here because you were getting a really bad runoff situation. This was a couple of years ago. And I've worked with the Peninsula Council on getting that done. So that's taking care of the runoff situation. Bottom left photo, bottom of the stairs, and then people traverse this way over the grass to get to the water over here. And this is the set of steps right here. So again, there's been some, you know, erosion off to the sides, and here maybe some additional grass planting just to fix this exposed soil. But overall, I think that this is a good set of projects in the interest of safety and not making things worse than they already are or that they were getting in the absence of these stairs. So that's pretty much the proposal in a nutshell. And no other comments.
Thank you, Joe. Questions, comments from the commissioners?
Drew, do you feel as though any of the erosion that occurs, for instance, in the right picture,
What's that?
I'm asking about the erosion in the right picture,
Yeah.
which happens in almost all of these three. I'm just wondering, is that natural? Is there enough tidal flow in and out of Papaneset Creek? Because some of these are towards the spit, and they do get some wave action. Is there enough wave action, in your opinion, that is contributing to the erosion?
I think it's a combination. I mean, you can tell in these relatively small footprints where the foot traffic has really done the majority of damage. And then off to the sides, because of that existing condition, it just expands out from there and the undercutting kind of branches out on both sides. So that's why I talked about, you know, doing some additional work just to kind of stave off that type of situation. So when you've got the tides coming in or you've got ice forming and then breaking up, ice rafting, you know, so it's a combination of things. But this will at least address the main access points at all three areas. And then we can look at, you know, since it's kind of expanding out from there, what to do. Usually, you know, getting core fiber rolls similar to like the straw wattles that you see on construction sites, something like that, and then planting, you know, through that. So you can get a variety that's filled with organic material. Some of it even comes pre-seeded, and have it staked in place because it can contour to the bank, plant it up and get it stabilized in the immediate areas to the left and right of these stairways. And then it should shore it up pretty nicely. So,
Good.
Other questions and comments from the commissioners?
I've got a question. Is there any type of a footing on these steps, or are they just cut into the soil?
There is no footing, there is no cement, it's all just wood. It's all just wooden. It is held to the embankment with timbers and rebar into the embankment. That's it.
So they're 4x4 timbers that are
With the rebar right through the timber on the side?
Right.
planted into the ground. So they're pretty solid.
Yeah.
I've stepped on them a few times,
Mhm.
and they're very stable,
And they're pressure treated.
pressure treated.
Exactly.
Other questions and comments? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make comment on this project? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I would move for a negative determination in regards to the application by Bright Coves Village Association.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And
Thank
thank you
you.
for the initiative with this.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
we'll process the permit and we'll get it out to you as soon as we can next week. You can either come in and pick it up, or we can mail it to wherever you want us to send it.
You can just mail it to the Peninsula Council.
Mail
That's
to the
fine.
Peninsula Council?
Yeah, that way they have the record of it.
Okay, we'll do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Calling the 6:06 hearing, James Atkins and John Waterman. This hearing has been requested for a continuance.
Yes, and the continuance date would be July 8th at 6 PM.
Do I hear a motion?
Second.
We haven't made a motion yet.
Oh, sorry.
He's trying to rush this along.
Make a motion to continue.
To the date and time specified?
So what was that date?
Oh, it was July 8th at
July
6 PM.
6 PM.
July 8th, 6 PM.
Thank you, Charlie. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brad. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And there's no discussion on the last agenda item for 130 Shore Drive West. This is a permit extension request. Are you here for that? No? Okay. This is the last item on the agenda, so.
Is there a reason why? I thought that was, when this project got underway a long time ago, that was a pretty straightforward thing. Well, why has it been extended so long?
I don't know. I did try to get an answer before the meeting, but I haven't, don't have any, but it's the third one, and usually it's typical if you ask for beyond three.
Yeah,
that's
I'm
when
just
you get
wondering
into,
whether they're
you
having
know,
some kind of-
providing an explanation of what's going on. And it may require redelineation of wetland resource areas, because after that amount of time,
Yeah.
the resource areas could easily change, particularly on the coast, so,
Well, he's moving down away from where all the controversy has been.
yeah.
And I thought that Peter got further away, and he thought that way back
Yeah,
7, 8, 9.
he's been spared compared to the other three.
Yeah.
He's been spared.
So there's got to be a reason, because he's not a guy to push things off.
Yeah,
Okay.
So there's no vote to take on that?
no, no.
Ma'am, I'd like to give you a chance, if you were here to comment or make comment before the commission, give you a chance to do so. Otherwise, we'll proceed with some of our post-meeting agenda items. And if you could state your name for the record.
Lynn Barbie, Surf Drive, Mashpee. I didn't actually come to comment, but I came mainly because I live in Seabrook Village, and we are heavily impacted by this, the pond, that's not a pond, it's not a cranberry bog, where the dam is broken on Red Brook Road. And I did speak to some people the other day who are in the Falmouth side, and I just want to say that they are as confused as a lot of us are about what's happening, who's responsible. I mean, we've heard some comments from Mr. McManus and from the DPW, but what we don't really know is, we were told as Seabrook Village Association that we owned a part of that. It's just a lot of confusion and a lot of people who are upset, mainly because they don't have information. So my question is, do we bring this to you all to have a discussion about this? Or how do we make sure that information is getting out to both us who are on the Mashpee side, and then we can share it with the Falmouth side, or get people from Falmouth to come to the same meeting? Because it's very disturbing to people because they don't know what's happening, and it's impacting their lives. They can't sit outside when the bugs are all around. So that's what I came to say. Do we bring it, my question was, do we bring it before you all to have a conversation about what the options are and who has to make those decisions and all of those sort of things?
So, yes, I mean, I've been I know that communication hasn't been, formalized with everybody, but there is always the opportunity, to call our department, to call Falmouth's Concom.
Right.
Both towns' departments of Public Works. So, and we have had this Red Brick Road culvert on our agenda now for the last 3 meetings. So you
Okay.
can always, attend a meeting or tell anybody to attend a meeting or look at the meeting video after
Okay.
it's been, so those are forms of keeping up to date, even in the absence of any sort of formalized process of letting everybody know. But the information is at the ready if people are willing to contact, those departments. And I have had, a few email inquiries that I've tried to answer to the best of my ability.
Right.
It is a fluid situation, no pun intended there, but it's
Well, it was
ongoing.
okay for a few couple of days, and then now it's leaking again, so.
Well, the sandbags were just put out, so it shouldn't be
I know.
leaking again. But the reason I say it's that kind of like fluid situation is because we still don't know what the root cause is. And the reason for that is because it's very difficult to look down into this area of the culvert and
Right,
see
right.
exactly what the problem is. In the absence of doing a major investigatory, project, which costs time and money, which can't
Right.
happen right away.
Right.
So in the absence of that, or in lieu of that, the towns have been trying to do what they can to, plug up the leak,
Right.
wherever it may be, which
Right.
you see has happened
sandbag,
now. And it's not going to fill up right away. It's going to take some time, especially because we've had a very dry spring and
right,
summer
right.
so far. So that's going to be predicated, on the weather conditions to see how fast it'll fill up. I've done my best to try and, address some of the concerns, and I know, they've ranged from foul odor to inevitable mosquito issues, and then, impacts to wildlife. And the best thing that I've, the most proper response that I can come up with those three main issues is, starting with mosquitoes, is that Cape Cod Mosquito Control is a resource that people can tap into if mosquitoes do indeed become an issue. It's kind of hard for me to gauge, really, because it is near a coastal area. You're near,
Right.
marsh and coast, which are conducive to mosquito habitat. So to say that they're better or worse given the existing conditions or previous conditions is very hard to evaluate just by taking people's word at it. Conventional wisdom really says that when an area like this is drained and you've got less stagnant water and you've got moving water through a central channel, that's not conducive to mosquito breeding habitat. When the area is flooded and the water is stagnant, that's mosquito breeding habitat. So I'm not saying people are right or wrong. I'm just going by what I know about mosquito habitat, because we work with wetlands all the time, and we know that stagnant water produces more mosquitoes than moving water. And less stagnant pools means less mosquito breeding habitat. So I've been giving that response to people who say that the mosquitoes are out of control, because in my mind, that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, given the conditions. But that's just my opinion. I'm not saying anybody's right or wrong, I'm just giving my
Right, right.
feedback. The wildlife impacts, yes, there were immediate impacts. There were fish kills, which resulted in foul odors. The last 5 or 6 times I've been out to the site, I haven't smelled anything. There's been no odor. So I think that situation has come and gone because of the fish kills. And I know many of my coworkers and other town employees have been out there dozens of times that have never smelled any foul odor recently. So in the initial drainage, there was, but we just don't smell anything out there when we've been out there. And again, I'm not saying anybody's right or wrong, just
Right,
from
right, I
our own
understand that.
experience. And yes, there were impacts to wildlife, but wildlife are adaptable. They do adapt to those types of conditions. And we know that there have been some struggles, and there certainly was a fish kill. But I can tell you that the wildlife that was adapted to a flooded bog are equally adapted to a drained bog. So things like turtles. We've even seen, and there's been members of Audubon and other wildlife observers who've gone there and said when the bog was drained, they've never seen such a variety of shorebirds in that area before.
Oh, yeah, there was a real traffic jams because of the bird watch.
So, you have a lot of different interpretations of what's going on there. And I'm not saying that anybody is right or wrong. I'm just going by my experience, in similar settings. When bogs are drained or wetland systems change like this because of natural drought or man-made causes. But the towns are working as quickly as they can to resolve this issue. We've applied for funding from Massachusetts Division of Ecological Restoration to see what sort of concepts we can work with, working with the abutters, thinking about the road. The road safety is really going to be the #1 paramount issue moving forward.
Yes, because it
So-
floods all the time.
Right, so that's got to be the #1 priority in all of this, and that's why this funding opportunity will help us to get some concepts going and see what works best. We certainly want to work with the abutters and, how this area is going to look moving forward, but I think looking at the road and the safety thereof and the structural integrity is really going to dictate everything else that happens in this area. And we understand the association owns the bog, the town owns the water control structure, the town owns the road.
We don't really understand how we own the bog, but.
Well, it's association land. It's deeded to the Seabrook
The
Shores.
whole place?
The whole bog, except for the water control structure, culvert, and road shoulder. Those are all town-owned.
So even the bit that's that's in Falmouth, the association, I'm on
I
the
can only-
association board at this time?
I can only speak to the Mashpee side, but I can only assume that it's probably the Falmouth side, too. We did talk to the developer. The developer handed it over to the association when he was done developing the subdivision, so.
I was on the board when we learned this, and it was a shock to the board
Ah.
that somehow or another the association owned it. Well, it's not up to me to present this, but we are having our association homeowners meeting in September, and I think it might be helpful if somebody could come and just be there and, address it and answer questions.
Sure.
You're going to take some heat if you come, but I think a lot of the problem has been feeling among people that they don't know what's going on, they don't know what the timeline is, they don't know what
Right.
the real plan is, and so they don't have a lot of, and they don't know who to go to except you to say what's going on, and then they get another email, which is fine, we appreciate that.
Sure.
But I think there's just a lot of folks who feel impacted by it, who haven't, who would like to hear directly
Sure.
what, if the association owns it, what the town as a conservation land would think about it, and what the responsibilities are of these owners who didn't know they owned it
Right.
to do.
Sure.
So, anyway, I will pass that on to the board, the existing
Okay.
board, and maybe if somebody could come to our meeting. Last year, we met outside on the tennis courts, so it
Okay.
was socially distanced and
Sure.
safe and masked, and I imagine we will probably be doing the same thing.
Okay.
Just because I feel like, because I did go into the Overlook neighborhood in Falmouth the other day and met some of the folks, they were out there walking their dog, and they feel exactly the same way. We don't know what's going on, or why, and it's
Right.
frustrating, and it's horrible, and we don't need that
Right.
if we can get better communication.
Sure.
So Lynn, I just want to commend you for actually coming to the source. It has been open to everybody to be able to come to a Conservation Commission meeting and talk about it. So I commend you for being the first one to do so,
Okay.
even though it's been on our agenda for months now.
Okay.
And for not just letting it stew in social media, because
Well,
that tends
yeah,
to be
no,
what
I don't.
happens.
I will remind everybody, I sent an email to everybody to be sure to go back and look at the meetings, because it would be on
Yeah.
Mashpee TV.
Yep.
I will do that. I came early because I'm on the Community Preservation Committee, so
there
I
you go.
figured, well, let me come and see what you all do and how you do it. And I had not gone on to your meetings either to know if it had been covered, so, and I just got a bunch of emails from one of the neighbors who's in a butter who was
Sure.
like, "Ah," it's like,
Yeah.
okay.
And we
Let's
already-
not be all frantic and panic about this.
Right.
Let's see if we can just have a little bit better communication.
And I'd be happy to volunteer to go to the association meeting. And I've taken friendly fire before, so
I'm sure, I'm
I'm
sure.
used to it. And this will be, just so you know, this will be an agenda item that we will keep on our agenda every meeting
Okay.
until this is
And I'll
resolved.
urge people to come and air their,
Yeah.
vent, if that will make them feel better,
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
if you all can stand it. So I understand
We're
what
used
that's
to it.
like.
We are,
All right,
yeah.
thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Yes.
Now that you mentioned CPC, well, that's one thing we didn't debate when we were talking about different positions within the committee, the commission.
When does CPC meet?
Community Preservation Commission, Committee.
No, yeah, when do
When do
they
they
meet?
meet?
Meet, not
In
meet,
about
sorry.
15 minutes.
So do they always meet after our meetings?
Not always. They're much more infrequent than our meetings. They usually start in the middle of our meetings in another room.
So this was, to try and determine who's taking the position from the Concom? or-
That's something we didn't, we discussed
Oh,
all
yeah.
the other positions, and
We didn't do
in
that.
a clear naked power grab by myself, we didn't discuss the position of CPC.
Well, if, I can put that on the next agenda, if that's, yeah.
Yeah, someone's
I'll
got a
do that.
burning desire to be.
Yeah. All right. I will put that on July 8th. Okay. Childs River restoration, just to finish up the pre-post agenda items. Most of the work, all the work is ongoing on the Falmouth side now, which continues to progress. I was sent an email today with some really cool drone images that show both the Garner Farley work and the near completed Garner Bog work, and then Farley Bog, which looks to be almost also nearly complete. So they've created these shallow ponds in each one of the bog complexes, along with rerouting the Childs River to make it more of a sinuous, winding river that it once was, along with wetland restoration. So they both look, when you look at the drone image, it's so radically different from the bog surface that existed there previously, and it's pretty amazing to see the transformation. And I think I mentioned at the last meeting that we had we communicated with the homeowner who had the ATV traffic coming down through their backyard into the restoration area. And so that's been resolved, and it's still an inspection to see that they're putting up a split rail fence to delineate the back of their yard, because the transition goes from this property's backyard to association land and then Concom land. So I asked her, the homeowner, to provide me with a contact for the association, just so I can have the association spread the word about this restoration in case there are other homes with ATVs that might be riding in this area, and to spread the word to stay out of this area. She was very, very cooperative, and she understood, and is willing to do whatever needs to be done to alleviate that situation. And I think the culvert work is still going, if anyone's tried to go down Carrot
I was
Shop.
going to ask,
Yeah.
it'd be interesting in walking it to compare against how it was to walk in that
Yeah, yeah,
before them.
yeah. I'll forward you the latest meeting minutes, and you can see what the latest status is there. I should have done that previous meeting, but I'll make sure that gets out to everybody so you're all informed about that. Still ongoing work at Upper Quashnet Restoration, nothing new to report there. Nothing new on the bylaw review subcommittee, though we did discover that, unfortunately, the email that I sent out or requested for legal services to review this mitigation regulation 12, particularly in the proposal to have an in lieu fee for the town's shellfish propagation as mitigation for docks and piers, to make sure that town council can tell us whether that's a bylaw change or that's a regulatory change. So we figured out why we didn't get a response, because he never received it. So now, by next meeting, we should certainly have his response by then and be good to go. Nothing new on the sewer substation review subcommittee. And the last item we added on, John's Pond invasive milfoil. So I'm in the process of filling out a notice of intent. Now I know what the other side goes through. Wow, it's a lot. It's a lot, especially when you're dealing with rare species habitat. Man, it's a lot to go through. So I have submitted the notice of intent, and I'm in the process of going through the Mass Endangered Species Act review as well. And the company, Wetlands and Waterways, that I've tapped into just to kind of get their take on milfoil and what's best to treat it. The gentleman who owns the company was nice enough to send me an entire project scope description to accompany the notice of intent.
Nice.
So I included that, sent it all off to DEP, and now I'll wait to hear from them about all the mistakes I've made and what else I need to submit. So that's, and the town has agreed to pay for, you know, all expenses involved in this, because it is something that needs to be dealt with sooner than later. And you're looking at just over 4 acres worth of milfoil infestation in the southern cove and channel and lagoon linking and the southern end of John's Pond. So hopefully, you know, and by the end of the summer, early fall, you'll see this before you, well, hopefully before that, and treatment will start sometime in late summer or early fall, I hope. So we really want to get a head start on this, so it's definitely at the top of the list for priorities. And one other item, too, that we just recently discovered is that the Board of Health has put out advisories for cyanobacteria on Mashpee-Wakeby Pond, which is very rare. We haven't seen that pond affected by that sort of blue-green algae, and not since my time. I don't think I've ever seen warnings out there since I started with the town on Mashpee-Wakeby. Certainly Santuit, that's a yearly thing, but not Mashpee-Wakeby. And so DNR did some investigating out there and also noted that some of the species, like they've seen catfish kills, and also stressed out freshwater mussels that look to be gasping for dissolved oxygen in some of the areas. So Board of Health has put out the signs around Mashpee-Wakeby at all the public points, and that'll be investigated as well. So we're trying to find out what the issue is there. But so
Early in the year for that.
what's that?
Early in the year.
Early
for
in the
that.
year, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Even for Santuit, it's kind of usually looking at mid to late July and August is
Yeah.
when that happens.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Especially
But
with the
on
cooler
a
weather we've had.
lake the size of Mashpee-Wakeby, I mean, it's got a big watershed, so it's not a shock that it's happened, but like you said, early in the year, it's kind of unusual. So I'll add that as an ongoing update to the pre-post agenda, so.
Thank you, Drew.
Sure.
Any other business, commissioners?
Drew, I want to just, if I could, ask for clarification in regards to the emails that you and I were exchanging in regards to officially accepting or allowing an osprey nest to occur on our waters, over our waters, around our waters. And, you know, it's come up simply because if somebody in a regulatory, or in this case, it's Comcast asking the question, do you have permission? So that we could insert a camera inside of the osprey nest and then transmit that to our customers here in Mashpee. And so they've simply asked the question. So I was simply asking the question. I look at the regs and I'm saying, wait a minute, I don't see anything about who has to sign off and approve an osprey nest before it's erected. If the homeowner says, go ahead, have fun, you know, nothing is written that I could see quick look at the regs. And the people are simply asking, and everybody's asking, we want to do it right. We don't want to find out that we go to the problem, getting Comcast to go out there, put a camera in there, and then all of a sudden find out that somebody comes along and says, get it out of there because you're violating ta-da.
So you're talking just strictly in terms of putting a camera in? The osprey nest is already existing?
They say it's going to be their camera equipment, so they want to get permission, and who are all the parties? They brought up that the homeowner to sign off will be tomorrow. But are they allowed to do so, given that it would probably be covered under our regulations?
So is this for construction of an osprey nest or just the camera?
The osprey nest is up there,
It's up.
right? I mean, the Friends of Mashpee Wildlife Refuge and some homeowners,
So you're only
they're
asking
almost
about,
encouraged to do so, get it out there.
yeah, so you're asking about regulations as it relates to installing cameras?
Yeah.
Okay, that was the point of clarification I wasn't sure if you were talking about the actual construction
No.
or just the cameras.
It's up there, but it's, you know, all of a sudden, you think about how many osprey nests there are around. If Comcast wanted to do so and to go to the bother of installing a camera out there,
Right.
you know, they sound like I haven't spoken directly to Comcast, but it sounds like through the gentleman whose name escapes me tonight, lives over in, well, anyway, he's the guy who was really the impetus behind getting that camera installed.
And it's not that he's wanting to make sure that the osprey nest was properly permitted to begin with.
Right. I mean, I'm not even sure how that's done. I mean, it's
Well, it goes through the commission, like any other project in a similar resource area, so salt marsh.
But, you know, I cannot recall anybody coming before this commission asking permission to put a osprey nest on their property. And there's a lot of osprey nests around.
That's your question. Okay,
Yeah,
so, okay.
Yeah. I mean, we have been, I know we were initially, this was a few years ago, and I think I know we had brought this up at a previous meeting, I just can't remember which meeting it was, where we had asked about the osprey nest, what sort of approval the commission would be happy with, and we were doing it through an RDA originally, several years ago. And the commission, we presented some options, keep it as an RDA, do administrative approval as long as we know that whoever's doing the construction has experience in that area. And the commission approved that to do it through administrative approval, so that's been the process. If anyone's put up a nest, without either, official permitting process or administrative approval documentation through our department, then we would have them go through that process retroactively. There were a couple of nests that were put up that were not up to standard, and they didn't last very long. They toppled over because the people who put them up didn't know what they were doing. So we make sure we vet all of that out for any application of an osprey nest. And plus, we want to make sure it's going in the right spot, not next to a bunch of trees where predators can get at it. And so all of those things need to be vetted out. But it's always your discretion as a commission as far as how you want any particular project in a resource area approved. So if you wanted to go back to an RDA, you wanted a notice of intent, or keep it as administrative approval, that's your discretion.
So in this particular case,
This was approved administratively, this nest.
This
of
one
reds,
was.
yes.
So could the camera then too be approved administratively?
That's what I'm not, do you know anything like osprey nests that have cameras had to go through the state or anything to get
No, because
approval?
it's removable.
Yeah,
It's not like a permanent
right.
thing.
I think as long as it's supervised by us.
Yeah, I'm just not sure if the state had any
Well,
stipulations on
I
that,
don't
or,
think so. I
It would
think
come under
probably Comcast is
federal,
wanting to make
because
sure that the
it's
pole was
migratory
legit
wildlife.
before they
Oh,
put
right.
something on it.
Sure.
That's my,
yeah.
wouldn't that come under federal because it's migratory wildlife?
It could, yeah, I don't know.
would think.
Yeah, you know what I can do, I'll send an email out to the other agents on the Cape. I've got an email distribution list, and just toss it out there and just see, for that aspect of putting up a camera, did they have to do anything to check with other agencies? Wouldn't seem to me that it would be necessary, but you'd certainly want it to be at a time when, the nest is empty.
And all of the people involved know that they've got to wait until the last one is
Yeah.
left.
Yeah.
October.
And that's, they all say, we understand, that it'll be sometime late September.
Yeah.
Before it happens.
Okay.
It's like, somebody's
I'll
just trying to do
just,
something right.
I'll
which
just
is
ask
different.
around, I'll check with the state, and I'll check with other agents and just see if anyone had to go through a particular process for that. And if the answer is no, then I would say, you can give Comcast the green light, and have them install it. But as far as like the fees, that's something, again, we'd have to, if it was something that the commission was gonna, pay for the fees to keep the camera footage going, we can just get that information and we can bring it as an agenda
Don't bring
item.
it up, because it sounds like right now Comcast is just going to install one of these special little cameras, and they just want to do it so they can pump it out there
Yeah,
over the wire.
Yeah, sure.
And people can enjoy it. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's fun, but
Yeah.
how long are you going to sit there and watch the little chicks?
I only have an eagle can.
Probably better than most things that are on TV.
That could
Oh,
be.
is there any other business before the commission? Otherwise, I'd like to give CPC a chance to take over the room.
Sounds like a plan. I'd move to stop talking.
Do we hear a second to that motion to stop
Second
talking?
that.
Beautiful. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Charlie?
Yes.
all right. Have a
Motion
good night.
carries. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Alex, I've been hanging on to
Yeah, I got something.
Paul, did you already pass?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Just Alex has to sign, and
Okay, great.
that 78 is from last meeting?
Yeah, we forgot to have.
I don't know how we missed that one. I don't know. I thought we got them all, maybe